This story is more of Herbeck's experience. However, it did happen during a sleepover. It took place in Alton, a small countryside town in England. The town doesn't offer much for young people growing up there, which encouraged many rebellious kids like myself to find mischievous things to do in our spare time, often without our parents' knowledge. I'm not easily scared, but this experience shook me up for a whole month. I remember it as clearly as glass. It was a Friday when my friend, whom I will call Jack, asked me in math class if I wanted to have a sleepover at his place for the weekend. I was hesitant at first because I wasn't really a fan of sleepovers, but he persuaded me by mentioning an abandoned hospital in the woods that we could explore. I jumped at the idea because I was really into all things scary and had heard about the same hospital in a Mr. Nightmare video. Since I lived in the same town, this seemed like the perfect opportunity. Of course, I said yes, and Jack told me to be at his place by noon on Saturday. After a tiring day, I got home and did some research about the abandoned hospital. It was called Robertson House. After scrolling for a while, I came across YouTube videos of creators exploring the hospital, which surprised me. One of the videos explained that the place was once used to treat British soldiers returning from the South African Boer War. It was reopened in 1908 as a treatment center for children suffering from tuberculosis, but for some reason it was shut down and sold off in 2001. Since then, there have been stories of paranormal activity within the building, voices of children echoing in the hallways, loud taps and bangs on the walls. Being skeptical of the paranormal, I didn't think much of it. The next day, I arrived at Jack's house in the afternoon. We quickly ate dinner, barely able to contain our excitement. When we left, we told Jack's mom that we were going to the town center and wouldn't be gone for more than a couple of hours. She nodded and we set off toward the hospital. After 20 minutes, we reached the forest leading up to the hospital estate. It was a quiet, isolated area. As twigs snapped beneath our feet, we noticed how silent it had suddenly become. Despite being with a friend, I couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling in my stomach. I hoped to hear birds, leaves rustling, or the wind blowing through the trees, but there was nothing. It was as if all life had ceased to exist in that area. I almost regretted my decision, but I carried on, staying on high alert. Finally, we saw the towering bricks of the hospital, just like in the YouTube videos. Tall grass and weeds covered the lower half of the building, and every window was boarded up with graffiti covering the walls, except for one window that stood out. It felt like a scene from The Haunting of Hill House. Jack strolled ahead, noticing my hesitation. He pointed at the only unboarded window and said, "The entrance is this way." Jack climbed inside first, careful not to cut himself, and I followed. We stood by the window preparing our phone flashlights before stepping into the dark hallway. More graffiti littered the walls, and spider eggs hung from the doorways. Jack pointed them out and joked, "You do not want to crack one of these open." I was too fearful to laugh. We noticed a door in the hallway that was halfway open. I pointed my flashlight toward it, and Jack dared me to walk in without my phone. I refused and told him that if anyone was going in alone, it would be him. He agreed, but called me a coward. I watched nervously as he approached the door, pushed it open, and turned off his phone light. His figure slowly disappeared into the room, and then an eerie silence followed. I waited outside, clutching my phone, thinking about calling it quits, when suddenly I heard Jack yell. There was genuine fear in his voice, so I knew he wasn't joking. I rushed inside and saw Jack standing in the middle of the room, staring at the floor, his back to me. When he turned, I saw pure terror in his eyes. He pointed to what he had been staring at, and when I looked, my blood ran cold. Inches from his feet was a pile of bird carcasses stacked on top of each other, some old and decomposed, others fresh. Then we heard what sounded like hooves crashing down above us. Jack and I exchanged terrified glances, confirming that we Both heard the same thing. Without hesitation, we bolted toward the exit. As we passed the staircase, Jack yelled, "Hey, I still want to see what's upstairs. Have you lost your mind? You heard those footsteps too." "There could be a squatter up there," I protested. Ignoring me, Jack called out, "Hey, is anyone up there? We mean no harm." An uncomfortable silence followed. Then Jack took a step up the stairs. The wood creaked loudly. My anxiety spiked, but I didn't want him to go alone. As I approached the bottom step, Jack stopped me. "Don't! If you step on these stairs, they might collapse. Just stay here." "Fine. This is a stupid idea. I'm waiting outside." He nodded and disappeared from sight. I made my way to the window and hoisted myself out. I waited for a minute, wondering if I had made the right choice to leave Jack. Inside, suddenly I heard sprinting from within the building. Through the window, I saw Jack running toward me. He leaped out, breathless, and without waiting for me to ask questions, shouted, "Run! Don't stop!" We ran faster than ever, adrenaline coursing through our veins. After what felt like half an hour, we reached the town center and stopped to catch our breath. Once I regained composure, I asked Jack what had happened. He explained that after reaching the top of the stairs, he saw a room with light coming from underneath the door. Realizing this was where the footsteps had come from, he opened the door and shone his phone light inside. On the floor was a huge pentagram surrounded by candles. As he backed away, he saw several robed figures standing at the end of the hallway, staring at him. That was when he decided he had enough for one night. We never spoke about this to anyone. To this day, the experience still sends chills down my spine. Who were those people? Was it some kind of cult living in those woods? Quite frankly, I don't want to know. I stay far away from that place now, and I advise anyone to never let their curiosity get the better of them. Some things are better left undiscovered.